And I'm Lucy Diamond.
Join us every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Beatles Across the Universe.
On InRavio.com.
Broadcasting to the world.
Catch us.
Hey, this is Gina Cotillo from The Gina Show. Come join us every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for celebrity interviews, Reality Reel with Billy Charles, funny stories with Brian Kinnear, and much, much more. The Gina Show can be found only on InRavio.com, broadcasting to the world. So come and catch us.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural,
and organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson from the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome. To my left, you're right, from myracenews.com, Walter Johnson. Welcome.
Hi, glad to be here.
You're
as
getting to
always.
be like that, like on the Johnny Carson show, you know, the guest that's
David
always
Brenner.
there.
That's
Yeah.
Except he's dead. I'm
He's
not.
dead and you're alive. No, it's always a pleasure to have you on. You're always in the chat room talking, pumping up the show, and we appreciate that here at not only at 505 on, but also in radio, as you met one of the principals upstairs with Phil.
Yes.
That was a good talk.
Yes.
And it's funny, I told you I was going to be here early, and you still beat me here.
I told you I'd be here before you.
Wow. It's just, getting through that Oakdale merge some days. I don't know why I even go that way.
The LIE was surprisingly light tonight.
Was it?
Yes. And then the poor people in the HOV lane really got screwed when the Suffolk County Sheriff's bus got in it just before exit 59.
Okay.
And plodded along at about 57 miles an hour, and then everybody got out of the HOV lane.
Everybody went, oh yeah.
It was funny to watch.
Yeah, Bristol was this weekend.
Bristol was crazy.
It always is. That's one of my favorite places.
There's times, having been in the place myself, I wonder if anybody has ever considered putting a roof on it.
Oh. I'll tell you, you could there.
Yeah.
Just the way it's like Coliseum. It's like the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island and steroids.
How many football stadiums are that size or close to it that have a roof, a retractable one or whatever? I don't know. Obviously football teams aren't putting out the level of carbon dioxide that the exhausts on cars are, but still, I'm sure that they could come up with a ventilation system, and that'd be one less time that they'd have to worry about rain. Rain has become such a problem.
Yeah.
This is the fourth race of the season, and they've had rain problems with the Daytona 500, and then with this one. They even had, an issue with Phoenix, right?
Yep.
Where they were worried about rain. It didn't really disturb things there, and now they're going out to California. I think they're done with the rainy season in California, so they should be okay there. But when they come back this way again, the way our weather's been, it's going to be a roll of the dice as to whether or not they can get events in on time. I mean, somebody made a comment about too bad all the people who weren't at Bristol, they missed a good race. Well, I think there was a lot of people who were probably there for the Sunday afternoon race that with the long rain delay said, well, you know what, we're just going to have to go home and watch it when they rerun it on TV or watch the DVR that we set up before we left. And then what do you do with the DVR? You set the DVR up to run until 5 or 6 o'clock, and the race doesn't get going again until nighttime.
It was 9:30 that the race, I think, finally ended. And I made that mistake in Martinsville years and years ago. The race would be on a Sunday. I'd be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and get an early flight Monday to be home. And it got rained out. The race then was held at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm at the Greensboro airport watching it from the bar, waiting for my flight. And I never made that mistake again. I always then made my flight arrangements for Monday evening.
I remember going to Dover once for a cup race, back when I had an RV, and we ended up listening to the nationwide race that had to be run on Monday because of rain on Saturday. They always had a lot of rain down there on Saturdays.
Right.
And there were times when the nationwide race was supposed to go at like 2 o'clock, didn't go until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they don't have lights. So then it becomes an issue of we've got to be done before it gets too dark to see the cars and for the cars to see each other.
And to run the race the next day, that's such an inconvenience, not only to the teams, but for the fans who have travel arrangements and hotel rooms that,
Right.
maybe they weren't staying in that night, that they're going home from there. But it's a tough thing. It really is. The weather stuff, I'm concerned about the weather for Martinsville next week.
I never considered staying over at any event where they had issues like that, because not so much that I couldn't, I had a lot of flexibility, but I was with other people who didn't necessarily have that flexibility, and we weren't going to see, one guy lose his job because the other 2 or 3 of us wanted to stay and see the race. It was like, well, I guess we have to go home, That's the way it goes. It's the luck of the draw.
It is.
You hoped it would work out. It didn't. Move on.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to go right to, I'm going to right to it. The caution that was called or not called or accidentally called with 2 laps to go.
I read today NASCAR's excuse was that somebody up in the flag stand inadvertently leaned on the switch and made the yellow lights come on flashing, and when the flag man saw it, he figured, I better get caught up and wave the yellow flag, and by then, they were done. There's no pulling it back in when something like that happens.
No.
I mean, that happens and you're finished. It's funny, I had somebody ask me about that this morning. What was that all about? And I said, well, I'm still trying to find out. I'm going to research it when I get home.
Yeah.
And I said, it is strange. I said, but I've seen before where there was a confusion with it. I said, what bothers most of the fans are these debris cautions when there's an obvious cardboard, paper cup, whatever you want to call it, on the track that really isn't doing any damage. I said, the other thing that never got explained was that incident earlier in the race where all of a sudden there was like white streamers all over the place, and they seemed to appear out of nowhere. And I never did find any explanation or hear of any explanation as to why that happened.
No. Well, NASCAR's official statement, according to NASCAR.com on this, is a track light malfunction triggered the final caution. As a result, they threw the full caution as the operation of the lights became compromised. Apparently, a flagman, as you say, leaned on the manual override switch, according to Robin Pemberton, NASCAR's Vice President for Competition and Racing Development. But NASCAR is going to review the situation. And I'll tell you what, I've been in a flag stand, and I've flagged some races on touring series and whatnot. And that is 100% correct. There is an override button on the flag stands. I tripped it at Thompson once. Same way, I was just doing my thing, and my hand hit it, and all of a sudden the lights started flashing. And all cautions, contrary to popular beliefs, are called from the tower. But in that situation, they realized the light was on, the flagman throws it out, and we're on the full.
Oh yeah, I've heard I monitor the radio, and I hear the tower say, put it out, put it out,
put it out,
and,
put it out. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot going on in the tower, and whoever the race director is for that event, whether it's David Hoots or Chad Little or whoever it might be, there's a lot going on that they have to control, and one of the things is the lights. There's a button, right? You're sitting at a console or a table, and there's a button. Sometimes it's handheld, like on Jeopardy. Sometimes it's a little switch, and they make that decision from there. But when you have a situation which occurred at Bristol, they have no choice but to put it out.
Right, and somebody has to be sitting. There's got to be more than one person sitting there.
Right.
Not so much at a place like Bristol, maybe 2 people can keep an eye on the whole place, but when you get to the larger tracks, there's got to be a number of people watching all over the track, just in case something happens, because, you had that late hit in the first segment of the race at Bristol, and that was with the caution out. The guy just couldn't get slowed down.
Right.
you don't want to have anything like that happen at almost 200 miles an hour at Talladega or Daytona or even some of the mile-and-a-half tracks where they really crank it up.
Hey, some of those mile-and-a-half tracks are quite fast
Yes.
for a mile-and-a-half
Yes.
racetrack. You know, they're hitting 108, 109 miles an hour.
Right.
Stuff happens fast. It
Right.
happens way too fast sometimes. But I got to tell you, I think NASCAR did the right thing with making that decision, because if somebody saw that light and they lift, and the cars go flying by, and then all of a sudden the green comes back on, that competitor has a valid gripe. So NASCAR
Well,
did
Carl
the-
Edwards didn't want to see it because he was leading, but then Mother Nature answered his prayers and it started pouring, and that was the end of it. So he kind of got lucky as far as I'm sure his initial thought was, oh no, I got to go through a restart, you know, and I haven't changed tires in a while, so now what's going to happen? And
That would have been an
then down
interesting
came the
green-white checker.
rains.
That
Yeah,
would have
oh
been,
yes,
you know,
yep.
between Carl Edwards, Stenhouse, Eric Almirola, and Tony Stewart, and that was going to be an interesting green-white checker. I think there would have been some bent sheet metal.
Yeah, well, at a track like that, yeah, with because they can get cranked up right away. You're not dealing with restrictor plates and needing a lap to get up to speed or anything. They're up to speed like 3 feet past the start-finish line when the flag comes out. But when there's nothing left, we've seen a few instances there over the years, which is one of the things that makes Bristol exciting with regard to having late race restarts and what happens. So yes, that's a fairly easy thing to predict.
Oh yeah, and stuff like that happens. And what are you going to do? You make the best of it. You make it happen. I see Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, is with us tonight. Welcome, Kevin. And I know Kevin has his feelings on some of the stuff that NASCAR does and doesn't.
Does he
do.
really? No, Kevin's not that opinionated, is he? I mean, he loves modified racing. He thinks that
does, he
NASCAR
does.
treats them well. Oh no, that's not Kevin. That's somebody else.
And to just comment about his comment, he feels that Cup racing is fixed. And let me tell you something. There's no way, in my opinion, because you still have to go 180, 190, 200 miles an hour and make a left without touching anything.
Well, I was going to say, it's an interesting theory, but I would need the person who's postulating that theory to expand on it and tell me, well, exactly how is this fix being done?
Yeah, I don't believe that. I really don't believe that.
I can see a horse race being fixed where you pay off jockeys to, hold back on the horse or something when they're coming around to the finish line or something like that. But I can't see getting 42 guys to step on the brakes.
No. I can't. And I can't see NASCAR putting itself in that kind of position.
No.
Ever. I mean,
No.
did some of the unscrupulous promoters years ago do stuff like that? Absolutely. But NASCAR is a worldwide known entity, and I don't think, in fact, I know they would not do anything like that.
And at the level that we're at with that, they would rather see 3 guys going at it,
Yep.
beating and banging on each other, coming off turn 4, coming down to the checker, than one guy coasting in half a lap ahead of the field.
Right.
Because everybody would agree that when that happens, it's not a very interesting race.
No.
When you realize that with 10 to go, that nobody's anywhere near the person that's leading. The person who's out in the lead's got the freshest tires, the fullest tank of gas, and everybody else is just battling for second. The races lose their excitement at that point.
Right. Yeah. They'd rather see the fans jumping in his seat,
Oh, yeah.
standing,
Yeah.
jumping up and down, screaming and yelling, and watching a close finish and have what you just said. Because
Absolutely.
you look back, I like some of the old races that every once in a while you can catch on some of the old channels, and you see some of the stuff. How like a Richard Petty could lap the field 3 times in a row. How could that happen? I mean, he was good, and he had a lot more money than many of the other teams. But back in that day, NASCAR needed to do something to make that race interesting. That's what they needed to do.
True, but back at that period in time, you had about 50 to 60 cars at a large track that would show up for the race.
Oh, yeah.
Many of them were locals, or it was the only race they were running all year, whereas Petty's operation was we're going to run every one of them, and they would tow from town to town. They had good sponsorship behind them. They bought the best of everything to put in that car, and they were definitely the ones to beat on any given race
Absolutely.
day. And there weren't too many others out there that had that kind of backing behind them. So he was the rabbit that they were all chasing, and eventually more and more people came into it and got the money, and it turned into what they call the modern era of NASCAR racing, when Winston came in and sponsored everything, and they went to just the 34, 36 races a year that they do now.
Yeah. When we come back, we'll continue our little talk about some of the old-time races, some of the things going on when we come back.
InRavio.com.
Hey, Beatle fans, I'm Glenn Calderon.
And I'm Lucy Diamond.
Join us every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Beatles Across the Universe,
On InRavio.com.
broadcasting to the world.
Catch us.
Hey, this is Gina Cotillo from The Gina Show. Come join us every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for celebrity interviews, Reality Reel with Billy Charles, funny stories with Brian Kinnear, and much, much more. The Gina Show can be found only on InRavio.com, broadcasting to the world. So come and catch us.
This can be the final answer. But what you say to me tonight, or will you say to me goodbye? For you, I will always be waiting. It takes two to mend what has been breaking. If you still choose to go, I'll be singing. I will remember you. I know I was the one who teased you. You made the stars so bright for me. But now you walked away so sweetly. And will you say to me goodbye, or will you stay with me tonight? For you, I will always be waiting. It takes two to mend what has been
Hey, we're back. Welcome.
Here we are.
We have a nice conversation during the break. Sometimes it's stuff we could talk about on the air. Sometimes it's stuff we can't. But sometimes the break conversation is really interesting.
Sometimes it's stuff they wouldn't want to hear us talk about.
Exactly.
It's got nothing to do with racing at all.
Anyway, so in the old days, I really wish that whoever owns those old Wide World of Sports races when the Cup guys are running, I wish somebody would put them on like a nostalgia channel or something, because I would love to see
Yeah, but they
those.
were chopped up things because Wide World of Sports they were on for like an hour and a half.
Then you got
and
like 40 minutes.
no, you didn't even get that much. They'd cut to the track for 5 minutes and they'd tell you what was going on and they'd show you what was happening. Well, they talked about what had happened before they came there, and then they said, all right, we'll be back later. And maybe it was 35 or 40 minutes before they'd go back for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then maybe if the race was over by the end of the show, they would show you the end of it. It wasn't really until '79 when CBS did the Daytona 500 that
Yep.
anybody did a race on a major network channel start to finish.
Flag to flag.
Right.
The 4 hours, and like Bristol was 8.5 hours.
Bristol was
That's
forever, and they changed and they switched from Fox to Fox One.
Right.
There were people I saw on Facebook that were complaining. A couple of people said, "Well, I don't have Fox Sports 1." Well, that means they don't have any kind of package with their satellite or cable, whatever it is that they have. And I think that's the whole incentive behind it, because I remember when they first did the switch over to the major networks back in 2001, when Fox got it. They didn't put all the races on Sunday on Fox. Some of them they put on FX, and people were complaining they didn't get FX on their cable system or their satellite. And it was, then they kept pushing, well, call your cable or satellite provider and tell them you need the FX channel. Well, that was them selling themselves to get a deal with those providers to get on there and make more money.
Right.
And I think right now it's not so much Fox 1 because that was Speed Channel. So if you're a race fan, you probably had Speed Channel
You had it
or you
already.
didn't want it. And it doesn't make any difference now, although there's more on there, obviously, with switching yesterday's race over to it than what Speed had before. All Speed had before was the Thursday races from Daytona and the All-Star race from Charlotte.
Right.
Plus practice or something like that, but they didn't really have any major races.
No.
But, again, you go back to the idea of you were going out yesterday to dinner at a relative's house and you set up your DVR figuring, well, I'll just watch the race tonight when I get home. And you get home and you find out that all you're watching is a bunch of rain delay interviews and 120 laps of racing, and you're like in a scramble.
Yep.
And you turn on your TV and put on Fox, and they've got their regular Sunday night shows on, and you're like, what happened to my race? Now you got to run to your computer and find out that, yes, it's running, but we moved it to this other channel. I mean, it's so hard to follow along with all of it, to stay with it, unless you were sitting there on your couch to begin with.
And I appreciate what they do, moving it to another channel
Yeah,
because of
absolutely.
program situations,
Absolutely.
but some people don't have those other channels.
Well, again, like I say, with the Speed Channel, I would say there's more people who had the Speed Channel and therefore have Fox Sports 1. Fox Sports 2 has become an issue because of a lot of things that the Battle at the Beach
Right.
business, where it was live on there and then it was rebroadcast later on that night on Fox Sports 1. It's like, pick a channel. I mean, Fox Sports 2 isn't even HD, and I don't get that at all. I don't understand. It's not like Fox doesn't have the money to upgrade the equipment. I thought that, well, I guess it was just the broadcast channels that were mandated by the FCC to go to HD on a certain date.
Yeah.
But why they would have a channel like Fox Sports 2 not HD, or as I haven't heard any plans to make it HD, is beyond me.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where everything is broadcast in HD for the most part, but not that channel. Yeah.
I can see them eventually, I think all of them, since they all seem to have sports channels now. I mean, next year when NASCAR goes over to NBC, it's not going to be on NBC4 or whatever the channel number is where people live.
Yeah, it's going to be that
It's
little
going to be on their NBC Sports Network.
Yep.
So that's going to be another thing you have to check with your provider to see if you have it on
Exactly.
your system, so that you'll be able to watch those races.
Yeah.
I would hope that they get the word out soon enough to everybody. We don't have to hear a lot of people saying, hey, I can't see the Cup races, or I can't see this, or I can't see that.
I mean, even my show is in HD.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
if I could be in HD, I'm just a little guy, Or if I'm in HD.
And you got a whole wide screen you don't even need.
I do.
Unless you have somebody sitting next to you like me.
Exactly. And usually it's just me.
Right.
You know,
right.
which is changing. We've had some nice guests. Roger Oxy took that 2.5-hour drive down to come on our show. And
Well, he's a driver. He doesn't mind a long
no,
drive, you know.
I'll tell you, he brought the Mustang. I watched him.
Oh,
move.
did he?
Man, oh man, it was nice. It sounded nice.
See, it's like when he leaves from home up there in Carmel, it's a nice drive down the roads, and then he has to go through New York City. And then, well, even coming out here, it probably wasn't too bad going home, but the ride out here probably wasn't
Yeah, he
any
got
better
delayed.
for him than it would be for you.
Yeah, he
or
got
I,
jammed
so.
up at exit 39
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
yeah, one of
LIA,
those
the
deals.
Long Island
Well,
Expressway.
tell him you should have brought somebody with him, then he could have used the HOV lane.
Exactly.
The blow-up dummy, you know, that's been tried too many
Put a
times.
fire suit on him, whatever.
Right.
Speaking of fire suits, I got an advanced look at my new fire suit
Yeah.
from ASI. It looks pretty cool. It's nice. I like it.
Is it just a generic suit, or we have sponsor names on it? Or
I got some sponsor
Oh,
names on
okay,
it, some stuff,
okay.
you know. Not a lot, but I'll tell you what, it was a black basic plain suit with all the required stuff, of course, and you know my name and whatnot. But I have a couple of .com sponsors, so we were able to put them on, and of course ASI did me a solid.
Really?
So of
Good.
course ASI is.
Oh yeah, probably,
Everywhere.
Yes, of course.
But Gene dressed it up. Gene at ASI, he dressed it up really nice. I just got it like on the way here today. I just saw it. So there's a couple of things I got to change and add and move around. But he did a nice job considering he did it from Florida and I'm here.
It's funny. I know a driver at Riverhead who shall remain nameless because I don't want to, you know, I don't have his permission to tell the story and I don't want to embarrass him. But I was walking by one day and he exclaimed rather loudly that he hated black fire suits.
Really?
And he had on a black fire suit. So I assumed that meant that he was getting a new one. And I saw him about 5 or 6 weeks later, and he was still in the black fire suit.
Black
and I
fire
said, are you getting a new one? And he said, not to my knowledge. He says, I haven't ordered one.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh. He says, why do you ask? I said, well, I remember a couple of weeks back you were saying you hate. He said, well, I do. I said, well, if you hate him that much, I just assumed that meant you were going to get a new one.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, it's not like buying T-shirts at Walmart. I said, well, that's true. I get that.
No, it's
But
not.
still, to this day,
It's a
he's
black
wearing a black fire suit. So
You see,
I guess
I didn't want a black fire suit either.
he's
but-
getting his money's worth out of it.
Oh,
I'll tell you.
definitely.
Without
Because-
a doubt.
But Gene, who's been doing this a long time, told me that some of the colors fade, and that the white sateen-looking type of suit, which really I think looks nice, you know, you get out of the car and you got rubber pitting on
Yeah, I
you.
was
You
gonna
got
say.
it doesn't hide the stains very well.
You got to be at the cup level where there's so much money they buy you a new one every week. It doesn't matter how
Pretty
dirty
much.
it gets. You know?
So I went with the black
You're going to
suit,
go
you
with
know.
white. No, that's.
It's got some blue trim, black and blue, because, you know, they say I'm going to get beat up, you know, not physically, but, you know, I'm going to be beat up. So I went with a black and blue suit, because, you know.
Surprised they don't list the color as grease and rubber or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, give me a grease and rubber fire suit, then it'll never show up when I get it all over here when I'm working, you know, crawling under the car to work on it.
It's like, you know, when I was at UPS, I was like, you know, how did we come up with UPS brown, which is a color that they've trademarked. And I was like, why do you have brown? Why are the trucks brown? The uniform, everything's brown, because it hides the dirt. You don't see it as much.
Well, it's like that big trucking company, Yellow Trucking.
Yeah.
Okay, all of their trucks have orange signs on them.
Yeah.
And somebody asked the guy about it one time, and he said, well, that's safety orange that
Safety
we
orange.
made the signs with.
Yeah.
But it seems like something of an oxymoron when, you know, you see yellow freight and then the sign is in orange. And you say,
Everything's
"What,
orange."
Are they colorblind?
I got to find out why they do that. I got to really.
How do you trademark or patent or whatever a color?
The actual color is UPS brown.
Well, I could see you could get a copyright on the name, but I mean, if I don't know, right after they filed for, you know, making it theirs and all of that, what happened to all the people who owned a shirt that color at home? Were they still allowed to wear it?
I guess they could wear it. It's grandfathered in. They can wear it until they can't wear it no
I mean,
more.
you go
I
down
don't know.
to UPS to mail a package and you have a brown shirt on, and the guy behind the
Rip
counter
it
looks at you
off.
and says, "Hey, what are you doing wearing a shirt?" You
Get
know,
it off, shirt. Get it off. The good old days. But anyway, back in the old days, and I'm an old guy, and I love those old races. When racing was racing, no
Yeah.
restrictor plates.
when
the
the cars
driver
were actually
drove.
cars.
They were stock cars,
Right.
you know.
I mean, I'll give you that there were things that were needed to be done to make them safer for the occupant
Absolutely.
than something that came off the showroom floor. But they've evolved to the point where they're really nothing more than IROC type cars now. Not even, because those had stock bodies. There's no stock bodies, there's no stock chassis. You know, people argued about, well, you can't really call them stock because most of them are front wheel drive, but these race cars are rear wheel drive, and you know, they're fuel injected. Well, now they got fuel injection. They've had that the last couple of years. Before that, they were locked into using carburation and everything like that. I'm still not sure how I feel about this ethanol fuel that they say that they're using. I don't know how they get the octane rating that they need for racing.
I don't know.
Out of something that can, you know, I don't see it containing the same kind of ethanol you would get with your flex fuel car at the local gas station.
No.
It's certainly not 85% ethanol.
No,
I get that they want to go green and that they want it to burn cleaner, and maybe it does burn cleaner. The disadvantage they get is whatever level of ethanol is in it, they don't get the same mileage out of it that they would out of pure gasoline. So all in the notebooks that told them how many cans of fuel they used to have to dump in at Talladega, Charlotte, Bristol, and everywhere else go right out the window, because now they're using fuel with ethanol in it and the mileage changes.
It does. No.
So the only thing they can do, they can learn a little bit from when they show up there to practice and they go out and do a fuel run or something like that and say, well, gee, we used to get 50 laps out of 2 cans. Now we're only getting like 46 when you ran out down the backstretch and coasted in here. So I guess it changed the book.
Yeah, well, that's what they have to do. But you know, it's funny that you were talking about the front wheel and rear wheel. How many Camrys do you know that have V8s in them?
None.
I asked that question one time, and that's probably why I'm on the other side of the fence now. Because I asked that question. I says, what Camry comes with a V8, and what motor is being used in that? And Toyota. That was the answer I got.
Well, the whole thing with Toyota when they came in around 10, 11 years ago was that they had to engineer an engine that ran on a carburetor, and they had never in their whole existence really had anything that ran on carburation in the 20 years prior to that. And they made them jump through all of the hoops to come up with developing an engine that did that, and then they changed the fuel injection. Okay, now the other thing is how many Chevy Impalas have V8s in them. Most of those have 6s, and some of them even came with 4s.
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing with the Fords, and Dodge is no longer in the picture, at least on the Cup level. But it's. I don't even think the blocks are stock anymore. I mean, I know that General Motors still makes the small block 350 whatever cubic inches, and Ford's got one, and I'm sure that Toyota came up with a way to manufacture one so that they'd be able to supply plenty through their TRD or whatever. But none of them are really walk into the showroom and I want one of those motor kind of deals like it used to be in the old days where they win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Sell on Monday.
Thing. I mean, Dale Earnhardt won on Sunday in a Chevy Monte Carlo, and Chevy dealers opened up on Monday morning, and they couldn't get the Monte Carlos in the dealership fast enough for everybody wanted one.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One of the last times I was in the R&D center at NASCAR down in Concord, I was in this big room that had Cup cars, Nationwide cars, Kenmore Truck Series trucks, and right across from it was the stock counterpart.
Oh yeah.
To show that the body lines were exactly the same. It was kind of weird. And it wasn't a tour, it was just set up that way. I just happened to be there. And I guess they do their measurements or whatnot. And they had the Ford, Chevy, each manufacturer, and they had the racing vehicle on the right and the stock version on the left. And I'll tell you what, other than the height, because the ride heights were a little different, you couldn't tell. It was exactly the same.
Well, the first real change was when they brought when Ford said they wanted to bring the Taurus in, and I think they rolled out the first prototype of the Taurus race car. I think it was in Indianapolis, and Felix Sabates took one look at it and said, "If that's a Ford Taurus, I'm my grandmother," because it didn't look anything like a Ford Taurus. And the Ford Taurus was a four-door, and the cars they were racing
Were
prior to the
two-door.
Thunderbird
Yep.
was a two-door model.
Yep. Yeah, well, they measure up the same. I don't know.
I found it strange. I was at Martinsville about 5 or 6 years back, probably more like 5 years back, covering a cup race down there, the Spring Cup race. And it was in conjunction with the Camping World Truck Series race. And that race got rained out on Saturday and was pushed back to Monday. So when we were there on Sunday, the trucks were still there, and they were in the infield, and they were covered. They all had their tops on them from the rain and everything like that. And I kept looking at them and saying to myself, these are supposed to be full-size trucks, but most of them look more like the mid-size or whatever, the Chevy Silverado looked more like an S10 size truck, or the race version of it. I just found the whole thing strange. I'm like, did they really... Has it really gotten down to where they just like miniaturized all of them, cut 4 inches out of the width and 2 inches out of the height and God knows whatever out of the rest of it to come up with, NASCAR's what I like to call unibody.
Well, it's. I say, take the aero out of some of these cars, take the restrictor plates out on the big racetracks, and let the drivers drive. And I think you'll see a whole different caliber of racing.
Well, true, but the aero is for the stability and the safety in the race. Okay, ever since Bobby Allison launched his car into the front grandstand fence in 1988 in Talladega, and they had to come up with the restrictor plate.
Oh, the roof flaps and stuff.
NASCAR's been worried about, we got to put roof flaps, we got to put the shark fin, and they played around with the spoiler. I mean, prior to that, the whole thing with